Okay, let's dive into this. Welcome to today's Explainer, where we're putting the spotlight on one of the absolute most fascinating, adorable, and, well, frankly, theatrical reptiles you could ever possibly keep. We are talking about the Western Hognose Snake. If you've been looking for a beginner-friendly reptile that's just packed with massive personality but stays a totally manageable size, you're in the exact right place. We're going to break down the science of their care, their exact environmental needs, and exactly why they've earned the title of the Desert Drama Queen.
Now, picture this. Imagine walking through the wild and you come across a snake that instead of striking when it feels threatened, literally flips over onto its back, writhes around, and actually sticks its tongue out to play dead. I mean, no way, right? But that is the incredible, quirky defense mechanism of the Western hognose. It's an absolute evolutionary marvel, and it immediately hooks pretty much everyone who learns about them. They're like nature's little actors, putting on a full-blown performance just to survive.
But before we get into the nitty-gritty of their setup, let's establish exactly who we're dealing with here. These little guys originate from the Great Plains of North America. We're talking a range stretching all the way from Montana right down to Texas. And listen, when you bring one of these into your home, you're making a fantastic long-term commitment. With the right care, a Western hognose is easily a 15 to 20-year companion. That's 2 whole decades with a truly captivating pet. So getting their care right from day one, yeah, that's absolutely vital.
So the crucial point is understanding exactly what these specific terms mean before you bring one home. You're going to hear them described as rear-fanged and famous for death-feigning. Now, death-feigning, well, that's exactly what we just talked about, that dramatic playing dead routine. But rear-fanged? I know, it can sound kind of intimidating to beginners. But honestly, don't worry. This just simply means they possess a very mild, highly specialized venom that's designed specifically for subduing their natural prey out in the wild, which happens to be toads. For us human handlers, they are considered completely harmless and are widely kept as amazing, docile pets.
Section 1. Building the perfect habitat.
And this brilliantly illustrates one of the absolutely most important things you need to know before buying your tank. It's the massive size difference between males and females. Males, they stay quite small. They're perfectly comfortable in a 20-gallon tank. But the females grow significantly larger, and they are going to require a 40-gallon enclosure to really thrive. Knowing the sex of your snake entirely dictates your habitat footprint. And that's exactly why a front-opening glass enclosure, something like the Exoterra Natural Terrarium, is a brilliant choice for that 40-gallon adult female footprint.
So once you have the tank, you've got to fill it, right? You actually have a few safe substrate options here. You could use a coconut fiber and sand mix, or you could even go all out for a fully naturalistic bioactive setup. But the absolute gold standard, recommended by the most experienced keepers, is Aspen shavings. Aspen is just incredible for them because it stays bone dry. And most importantly, it actually holds its shape when their little snake starts tunneling.
And you might be wondering, why does the substrate holding its shape matter so much? Well, it's all about that signature, adorable, upturned snout. It isn't just for cute looks. It's actually a highly evolved biological shovel. Seriously, out in the wild, they use that specific snout to dig and burrow deep into the earth. And in captivity, you really want to encourage that exact natural behavior. So giving them aspen shavings lets them dig these really complex little tunnel systems that won't just collapse in on them. It keeps them super enriched and feeling totally secure.
Let's transition over to Section 2. Heat and humidity rules.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the exact precision of these temperature zones. Snakes are ectothermic, meaning they rely entirely on their environment to regulate their body temperature and digest their food properly. You've literally got to provide a thermal gradient for them. Your basking spot must be hot. We're talking between 88 and 92 degrees Fahrenheit. Then the cool side of the tank needs to drop down to about 72 to 78 degrees, which gives them a place to escape that heat. And at night, the whole tank can safely drop down to somewhere between 68 and 75 degrees.
But to achieve that perfect gradient, you're going to need the right gear. Forget those old undertank heat mats. You really want overhead heating. Specifically, something like the Arcadia Deep Heat Projector at 50 watts. It produces this infrared heat that penetrates deep into their tissue, which beautifully mimics natural sunlight. But you absolutely must pair this with a high-quality proportional thermostat like the Herpstat 1 to precisely lock in that 88 to 92 degree basking zone. And finally, even though they're snakes, providing a proper 12-hour light and dark cycle with a low-level ZoomEd 5.0 UVB bulb is highly recommended. It really promotes their natural behaviors and overall health.
Okay, I really want to burn this number into your memory right now. 50.
50% is the absolute maximum humidity limit for these arid desert dwellers. You really want their environment sitting somewhere between 30 and 50% humidity, and you're going to need a reliable digital hygrometer to track that closely.
So why does this matter so much? Because entering the danger zone of chronic humidity above 50% is basically the fastest way to make your hognose sick. High moisture levels for this particular species heavily risk respiratory infections and a really terrible condition called scale rot. They need it dry. The only time you should ever introduce any localized moisture is by giving them a temporary humid hide when you notice they're going into a shedding cycle. But other than that, keep it dry.
Next up, Section 3, Feeding Your Carnivore.
Like we mentioned earlier, in the wild, these little hunters track down toads, frogs, and lizards, but in captivity, things are so much easier for you. Captive-bred hognoses thrive perfectly on a straightforward diet of frozen thawed mice. And because they're eating whole prey, bones, organs, the whole shebang, you generally don't even need to worry about daily calcium dustings. It makes their nutritional care incredibly simple.
Naturally, as your incredibly cute pet grows, their prey size and feeding schedule are going to grow right alongside them. Hatchlings, they start out on tiny pinky mice every 5 to 7 days. Then, as they graduate up to juveniles, you'll move them up to fuzzy mice about once a week. And by the time they're full-grown adults, especially those larger 40-gallon females we talked about, they'll be eating small to standard adult mice every 7 to 14 days.
But what happens when they just refuse to eat? Well, welcome to the feeding strike. Remember how we called them drama queens earlier? Yeah, this is where it really shows. It is incredibly common for Western hognoses to go on seasonal feeding strikes. They might just suddenly decide, nope, not hungry for a few weeks. As long as your temperatures are dialed in correctly and your snake is captive bred with a good track record, this is usually completely normal behavior. Honestly, it's nothing to panic about. Just monitor their weight and stay patient with them.
And that brings us to Section 4, Mastering Western Hognose Care.
So here is the final verdict on the Western hognose. They are fantastic, widely considered beginner-friendly snakes. They stay nice and small, they're incredibly easy to handle, and their baseline care really is quite simple. But, and listen, this is a big but, mastering their environment is totally non-negotiable. You cannot cut corners on a thermostat, you just can't guess the temperatures, and you absolutely cannot let that humidity spike. You control the climate, and in return, you get an absolutely amazing pet.
Let's move to and see how this builds, because what we've covered today is really just the foundation. If you want to dive deeper, there are over 80 comprehensive guides out there specifically dedicated to every single aspect of Western hognose care, just waiting for you.
So I leave you with this final thought. Are you ready to master the drama and welcome this incredible desert dweller into your home? To get access to all 80 of those detailed guides, the specific gear recommendations, and step-by-step enclosure setups, you really need to visit the Krawlo blog right now. And hey, while you're at Krawlo.com, be sure to subscribe to their free weekly reptile care newsletter. You'll get research-backed guides sent straight to your inbox. Take the next step, do your research, and enjoy the absolutely incredible journey of reptile keeping.